what this talk is about, sense making. It's about automated methods for taking the information that's readily around us, which does require some level of human knowledge, everyday knowledge that we gain in our lives through our educations, through our conversations, presumably even through conference talks, and making connections. Image on the left comes from LinkedIn. You can use this yourself to create a graph of your connection network. It is a graph that you can see different colors here. Those are subnetworks or cliques, if you want to call them that, or clusters, you could perhaps call them, of people who are grouped somehow, who have some similarity criterion, some similarity factor. What's on the right is this sort of work done manually by an artist named Mark Lombardi, who died in 2000. He was a suicide. He did a lot of research, manual research, and found all kinds of connections, including, actually, I'll go back connections of George H.W. Bush, our first president, to Osama bin Laden. Just think about it. Two people who are in the oil industry, a Saudi and a Texan, are going to be connected. So we are interested in connections. That's what sense making is about, through graphs, like that LinkedIn graph, or the manually done one, that embody clusters, categories, and counts. We want to mine the full set of available data. I'm really glad I'm not in the other room in the big data track, because big data is not real interesting. I had a speaker at a conference recently, Gary King from Harvard University, who said that big data is not about the data, it's about the analytics. And I think that's what this particular subtract is about, analytics, making sense of the data that's available to us. So online and social change everything. That's obvious. Got a few images here. One comes from graphing Facebook words that carry attitudes and emotions to attributes that they are applying to, or rather factors they apply to. Frank mentioned NetBase, rather. The image in the upper right is from the Wall Street Journal Sentiment Tracker, a popular delivery of sentiment using the NetBase tool. And on the bottom right is something you can go play with online. I'd characterize it as a tool. It is something called the hedonometer. Hedonics is the part of economics that looks at happiness and satisfaction, looks at tweets, uses text analysis to get at that information. The data is everywhere, and it's accessible. I have 3 images here on this screen. Mashape on the left is essentially a collection of application programming interfaces that let you plug in data from external sources and services into your own applications. That can possibly include packaged applications and software. I have an image from the bottom from DataSift showing their complex pipes to gather data from a whole disparate set of sources. GNIP does this also, and deliver it to your applications. And then, of course, the Facebook knowledge graph on the upper right. I'm sorry, I should call it the Open Graph Protocol knowledge graph is Google's. It's about connections and then representing them. So what we're really interested in is how we can populate all of this information, how we can mine all the text that's out there, find these connections, and that is my thesis through text analytics. That is natural language processing that applies a variety of methods. Lexical, we look at the words and their constructions. Syntactic, how the words are arranged in sentences, grammar, all that kind of stuff. And semantic analysis, looking at the actual meaning of words and phrases in the context in which they're delivered and also in the context in which we're consuming them. We apply these techniques in order to discern all kinds of features and relationships in textual sources. I list a bunch of types of features here: entities, measure value pairs, 10 pounds. Well, is that a weight or is that a currency measure? That's where we need semantic analysis, concepts and so on. We use lots of good techniques that for many of you it's going to be sufficient to know that they're embedded in the tools that are out there and available to you. How does it work? Well, I use here an old image actually from a tool just for demonstration called Atensity that breaks down, parses a sentence, breaks it down into parts of speech, and from that creates this network of interconnections. Again, the key to sense making by parsing the text. The same kind of things that I and most of you probably learned to do in junior high school or middle school. Further, we understand the relationships among words and phrases. An illustration here, a graph again from something called WordNet, developed at Princeton University, available free and openly to you. VisuWords is a visualization of this. We understand how words are arranged in order to make sense of them to turn them into data that can be used in our applications. I called clustering a key technique here. That is finding commonalities among sets of information in order to group them for some particular business purpose. Open source tool here called Caret2. Some of you, if you use the Crimson Hexagon tool, might find this familiar. Many tools that are out there do use open source for good purpose. It's very solid stuff. We find clusters, ways of grouping for a business purpose the information content of our sources in order to make sense. So really what I want to talk about, maybe go beyond some of the other talks today, is the back end and the front end. How this works, well, we've indicated that a bit in the last few slides, how it's delivered, and then the front end is going to be what it looks like to you as a consumer of this data and applications. The back end includes a variety of platforms and ecosystems. Radian 6 has been mentioned here. That's a great example of a platform. It is an application framework into which you can plug a different, diverse set of data sources and analysis tools via application programming interfaces. Ecosystems, to me, is more a collection of software that interoperates to some degree with data sources. APIs and services can get you to all kinds of information and services that are out there. By services, I mean principally analytics, because that's what is involved in making sense. And text and content analytics to get out those features, and including the relationships. Keys here to moving forward are the ability to do data integration or record linkage if you're in a certain world, data fusion if you're in a military and intelligence world, in order to do that sense making. How's this all delivered? I have a few examples here. One of them on the bottom left is from Clarabridge, which is a tool that sells heavily into the customer experience world, also used in the market research world. Shows the typical kind of dashboard display that we've been seeing as prevalent in the social media analytics world the last few years as that has emerged. In the business intelligence world, dating back a number more years beyond that. On the right, we have something called from Endeca, which is owned by Oracle, which again pulls data from disparate sources. That's why I call this composites, and displays it in ways that make sense, whether it's a geographic display, a chart type of display, with ability to manipulate the information up there. And First Rain pulls information about businesses and executives and so on. Another set of examples, Silo Breaker's been out there as a news search engine for something like 4 or 5 years, mines the content in order to create the graph that you see on the left there, connecting entities, individuals, companies, organizations of whatever stripe, geographic locations, in ways that can help you make sense of the world that you're mining. And Wolfram Alpha is a so-called computational knowledge engine that does the same sorts of things with all kinds of factual information that is mined from textual sources combined with structured databases. We do have all these social sources that we want to make sense of. They are product reviews, for instance, of the type that you see on TripAdvisor or Amazon. I won't go into Twitter and all that because you all have seen examples of Twitter analysis, but there is valuable content here. The thesis is, I don't think I need to do much convincing for your business purposes, market research, customer service, customer experience, the whole set of applications. Sentiment is key. I have a couple of academic definitions of sentiment analysis here, identifying positive and negative opinions, emotions, and evaluations. Opinions, emotions, and evaluations do go beyond positive and negative to really express feelings and attitudes. We Feel Fine has been on the web for a number of years. It's a toy application, but very well represents the concepts here, including putting different sentiment that is mined from the web into categories that are useful for you to explore. We're interested in going beyond polarity, beyond that positive and negative, to really looking at emotion categories. You might find it much more useful for your business purposes to understand whether a customer is angry or happy or sad than you will find, positive, negative tweet. So this is an image from Clarabridge. We're interested in intent. Is someone planning to buy, cancel service, maybe make a return? Is someone making an inquiry? The kind of intent analysis that we see broken down in the table from a small company in India called IIeX Labs. And we're interested in the illustration on the left, in separating out the different types of intent. Intent to act versus the emotions. Those are not always completely correlated. Sentiment can be very complex. There are a lot of claims that are made out there that are not always well justified. You need to really try out the various tools that are available on your data for your business purposes in order to find the ones that work best for you. And then lastly, we are interested in going beyond text. I know there are talks today, for instance, from Affectiva labs that look at facial recognition in order to detect emotion in images and video. We're also interested in getting emotion and attitudinal information, all kinds of information from speech for contact center applications and a bunch of other stuff. This information is readily accessible and can be integrated. And that's where we get this concept of sense-making. I have a quotation. Just look at the bolded part here. Sense-making refers to an iterative process of formulating conceptual representation from a large volume of information. Call it big data if you want to. I don't care. And that's creating something in your business context for your purpose that makes sense, that guides you in decisions. So I have a bunch of suggestions here. You can read them for yourself. I have my slides posted online, and I'll tweet it as soon as I get off the stage, where you can see the slides on SlideShare. A bunch of suggestions for how you can get into these technologies, and then we'll just consider that it's a long road ahead of us. This is an image of Alan Turing, who is one of the founders of modern computing. He died a long time ago. He was a marathon runner. The metaphor of a race is very apt here. We're racing because of the high velocity of our business to make sense of this world around us, all of the data available to us for given business purposes. So that's it for me. I don't know if schedule-wise I'm going to take any questions or whether I'm getting booted.
We're actually slightly ahead of schedule, but since we have not had time for other speaker questions, we're going to move forward. But I did want to just take one quick question that actually came off Twitter that I thought might be relevant for everyone in the room, which is there one particular text analytics platform that's good for certain types of text analytics? Because it seems like there's so many platforms out there, and I think you profiled even 4 or 5 in your talk today. How do people sort of determine what the best text analytics platform is for their particular need?
There are a lot of factors that apply. Text analytics actually dates back to the 1990s for industrial application in life sciences, pharmaceutical drug discovery, and in military intelligence. You're probably not going to want to apply those tools, the descendants, for your market research or competitive analysis projects. But I would look for a supplier that understands your business. That means your business domain. It might be hospitality or restaurants or consumer goods, or within consumer goods, consumer electronics, or online retail. Sometimes the tools are customized via custom lexicons or rule sets, depending on their approach, maybe via taxonomies and so on. You want to look for a company that has experience in your space, but text that is readily understandable by you, at least if the languages that you speak. If something's in Thai, I'm not going to understand it, but machine translation is pretty good nowadays. You can try these tools out and see if the answers produced make sense to you. And if they do, you're on the right track.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Seth.